that's how Nooku got started. Nooku got started, that's actually what we announced in 2008, as Nooku content, which we now call Nooku content, which eventually is going to be removed and go into Nooku server. That's the multilingual part that we originally did, how to create a multilingual website with Joomla 1.5 and what we call Nooku content. We built that using what we call a funded GPL business model. We basically told those organizations, hey, happy to build it for you, but it's going to take some time, so we need some funding, a little bit of budget to get that done. So we set up a partner program, and we have 30 partners that all paid one-time fee. In total, we had a budget of, I think, 30,000, maybe 40,000 euro, which is not that big. We used that to build Nooku content. I'm not going to explain this in detail, but that's more a product pitch. What it basically does is it allows you to translate a Joomla site in as many languages as you want. If you're interested in that, I can give you a demo later, but it's much more a product pitch. So that was the first step, 2008. These are some screenshots. We'll go through those. Now, there we go. 2009, if you're a developer, as a few of you are in the room, when you're developing something that becomes a certain size, you're always going to go like, hey, there are some reusable parts in here. Can I not like put those parts aside somewhere so that when I need them later, I can reuse them? If you work for clients, we're probably in-house, we're going to have developed some sort of like a code library or a small in-house framework that you reuse for different client projects because it doesn't make sense to rebuild it all the time. Developers, we developers call that dry, as in don't repeat yourself, which is our coding practice. Keep your code dry, developers often say, like, how dry is it? You know, and then if you hire a developer and you can ask him the question, like, how dry is your code? And then if he doesn't really know what it is, then you already go like, right? You go, well, I have this thing and I make sure that there's no water getting in. Right? So it basically means don't repeat yourself. We don't want to repeat ourselves as developers. I said yesterday, a developer is... Good morning, Damia.
Good morning.
How are you?
Very well. Thank you.
Damia, you're from?
Mallorca.
He came all the way from Mallorca over here. A little applause for that. I met Damien on a few events. Joomla de Mallorca. You were in Switzerland when we did boot camp. Other places? Netherlands, Joomla de? And Rome. Damien is one of those people that travels the world, sees a little bit of the world, and at the same time comes to Joomla or Nooku events. Good morning. So, 2009, we already had separated quite a lot of the underlying code from what we were doing with Nooku content. Then we were like, hey, that's interesting. We could use that for our client projects, which we did. But maybe we can also, I'll move that apart. We can also use that and make it available to other people so that they can also use it. And in 2009, we announced on the Joomla Day in the Netherlands, we announced Nooku Framework, which grew and has its origin in the beginning of 2008. That's where we actually separated it, put it separate in an SVN, and started developing the framework separately from Nooku content. So we announced that, and then a little bit later in the summer, we put it on SourceForge because people were asking where can we download it, where can we get it, and that's how the framework story started. Different with Nooku content, Nooku framework is completely freely available, doesn't cost any money. It's driven by a community of people and not by customers. So it requires a different way of working with it, at least from our side. So what is it? It's a rapid extension development framework. I explained it yesterday. What does it do? It makes it easy for you to quickly develop extensions that are a lot more powerful. How do we do that? Well, a few things. At the moment it's version 0.7 alpha. Alpha 1 is end of the week. GPL v3 license. It's non-commercial. It works in Joomla with 5.1.6 and it sits in the server. In total, there are approximately 40 lines of code, but if you only count, it's actually 35. If you only count the actual PHP code, it's 10,000 lines of PHP code. The rest are comments and a few other things we have in there, and there are 3,000 commits going in. We approximately put 1,000 commits per year in the framework, which is it's the same commit rate that we had with Joomla 1.5, approximately. 3 things that it does. I'm not going to go in detail. Did it yesterday. It allows you to write a lot less code to do the same thing. Approximately 80% less. Ninja board, left side, written on Joomla framework, right side, written on Nooku framework. Difference, 80% less. Why is that important? It makes people like Stian focus on features, focus on what he's actually doing instead of focusing on how it should work on the lower level. The cool thing also is that people that build on top of this build on a bigger common base, which allows people to work together better. And if you're looking at extensions that are written with a framework like this, then there's going to be more convention, which makes it easier to give code to a developer and then have a developer continue on top of that code. It's going to be easier for a developer that knows Nooku framework to understand how Ninja board works. It's easier for a developer that knows Nooku framework to understand how Anahita is going to work or is working. There is much more convention. Second, flexibility. Explained it yesterday, I'm not going to do the whole story. We want to create a system where there are less extensions that are more powerful, and that you can combine those extensions to create web application. I explained Lego and Lego Technic yesterday. Versioning is something that you need in different web applications. You don't need to build it specifically each time. You build it once and then reuse it. That means that your versioning solution needs to be very reusable and very generic and very flexible. But that's possible. In Joomla, we have created a lot of CCKs. They all do the same, and they're approximately 80% of the code that is in there is approximately going to be the same, a little bit different. Functionality-wise, they do 80% of the same things. If you could take those 80% out, build one common base that does that, and then differentiate on the 20% of specific features, less code written, less work done, a more powerful solution in the end. And then, finally, security. Who was asking about security? There was here and there. Right. I asked yesterday, who is a security expert? And I'll ask it again. Who is a security expert?
Well, I would say our host yesterday was a security expert. We couldn't get out of the building.
That's true. Oh my God.
It was good. We just didn't dare to open the door.
You weren't running around in the maze.
Yeah, I know a lot of people went down to the basement to the garage.
Yeah, yeah.
And got lost.
No, I didn't get lost, but it was, it was not the shortcut. Sorry.
No problem. It was an interesting experience,
Yeah.
at least. We went through that elevator 3 times to actually figure out we were ending up at the same place every time. Oh shit. So better security. Joomla out of the box is quite secure. There are not many security problems found in Joomla itself. Joomla is only part of the solution that we're building. The solution exists out of Joomla plus extensions, and something is as secure as its least as its unsecurest link, or its weakest link. The weakest link in Joomla are the extensions you put in. Plus, in some cases, also the web server you put it on, but that's the hosting provider's responsibility. If you put those extensions in, that's your weakest link. At OSM at some point has said, Elon Warren wrote that on a blog post, yes, we have security problems, and no, it's not Joomla's fault. It's the third-party apps developed for Joomla. Now, first of all, I don't like that name, third-party apps. That basically means it's done somewhere over there, and we don't really care about it. Yeah, we put it on our website, there are 6,000 of them, but it's all their problem. Right? They also call them third-party developers. Which third-party? Right? They're all Joomla developers, they're all PHP developers, they all try to work with the same technologies, they're trying to solve the same problems, so how third-party are they? So we're saying, well, You can blame it on the other guy, doesn't solve the problem. It just lays the responsibility somewhere else. That's politics, that's what politicians do. They blame always the other party. Let's try to focus on that problem and at least try to come up with solutions for it. I'm not going to say that we're going to solve it like that. At least try. If we can create a framework where you write less code, you're going to lower the risk of vulnerabilities automatically because you have simply less code to write. There's going to less bugs go in, there's less code to look at. If you can provide more advanced automatic security features in that framework because it's broader, you're going to help solve problems. So instead of throwing that responsibility at a third-party developer, let's make that a responsibility of us as a Nooku community to try to solve it together. Not everybody is a security expert, and that's perfectly fine. I'm not even a security expert, and there are other people that help me understand what I need to deal with. But if you put it in the framework, if something goes wrong and you build on top of that framework, we can fix it in the framework. You fix it in one place, and it works for everybody. Of course, the thinner your common base, the more difficult that becomes. Security. Very important. So where can you find the basic information for the framework, google.org/framework. 2010, well, in 2009 we announced the framework. We put it on SourceForge, and we saw quite some interest. People wanted to work with it, people wanted to get going with it. So internally we started a mailing list and people needed to sign up for that before it wasn't public. 2010 we said, hey, it's time to take the next step. It's time to start making more information public, and we're also going to need some sort of resource where developers can work together. In Joomla you have Joomla code.org, which is a resource where developers can work together. We needed also a developer portal, a place where code goes and where developers go to find the code in the wiki and the information. So that's what we announced in 2010, which we worked on for a couple of months, and that's the developer community, which I showed you yesterday a little bit. I'll go a little bit deeper today. So this is where the magic happens, as a matter of speaking. This is where developers go to find Nooku code, and this is also where developers go to interact with the community. As I said yesterday, it's not a product, right? There is nobody to call. There are mailing lists to subscribe to and ask questions. There are places to go to find code, but you still need to do it yourself. How does that work? Well, you have code.nooku.org, which a few people had already opened and saw. And that has a number of spaces. And each space has milestones, which gives you an idea of what we're working on and which tickets are in those milestones. It has an activity stream, which is quite interesting. Joomla code doesn't have this. This is basically everything and anything that is happening in that space. So if you're interested in seeing, also from a business perspective, that you're working with open source technology, you want to know how active your open source project is, right? There can be a lot of talk about it, but is it actually something happening inside? Is there code being written? Are people working together? You need to be able to measure that anyway. This helps you to see what is actually going on in Nooku spaces. This is an RSS stream, and actually today we have a little button here on the top that says watch. If you create an account on Assembler, click the watch button, you become a watcher, and you actually get these things in your email if you want to. And then here you can set what you want to get in your email, and you want to get a daily email, an hourly email, or a weekly email to see what is going on. If you're a developer, that's very, very handy to follow what is going on in the framework. I completely understand what Volmer was saying about I don't have time every day to look at this. But in this way, it's being pushed to you. And on a weekly basis, you can go over the commits that have been made, the changes that have been made, and you can read through those. If you then have questions about those, you could go to the mailing list and ask a specific question about something. Or you can get an RSS feed from this stream. Every space has a stream like this. Then what we also have is, of course, the code itself. which you can find in the different SVN repositories. Each space has a specific SVN repository. What is SVN? Source code versioning. Who doesn't know what SVN is? A few people, so I'll explain it. When developers work together, they need a way of collaborating on code, right? Suppose, imagine that we're working with two people on the same code, on the same file. Martin is working and I'm working. Martin is in Stockholm and I'm in Brussels. And we're working on that file. Now, I would need to go call Martin and say, hey Martin, I'm working on this file, right? Have you made any changes? And then I go, yeah, I'm working on it. I did some cool stuff. And then I go like, yeah, me too. Oh shit. Because he changed it and I changed it, then you go like, can you send it to me in a zip file? So that I can take your changes into my code and you can take mine. This is actually what some Joomla development companies still do. I met development companies that are going, yeah, we send zip files around in the company through email. And I'm going, okay. Yeah, that works. You ever considered using Git or SVN or a solution for that? No, zip files, that works fine. Yeah, that's not really productive. So what we do is, we use what we call a source versioning system. You put the source code on a server, developer gets it from the server, makes a change, pushes it back. If in the meantime the code was changed, you will get a conflict and you can merge the changes. So if Martin made a change and I made a change, we can see that, we can merge the changes. It allows us to be working together from a distance in the same code, and the system takes care of it. SVN. If you don't really know how SVN works, technically it doesn't matter. What you do need to know, what you could want to know is SVN repositories or source versioning systems in open source projects always use a similar structure. We always talk about, and this is going to sound strange, a trunk. We talk about tags. We talk about releases. And we talk about branches. Now, what does that mean? It's related to a certain development workflow. Your trunk is basically a spot, and it's actually a folder here called trunk. Maybe you don't see it, but if you go to code.nooku.org and you click framework and then you go to source SVN, you will see this. There is a folder called trunk. The trunk is where our most stable code is that hasn't been officially released yet. Right? Our tags, which is another folder called tags, our tags are copies of that trunk that at a certain point in time have been frozen, they have given a version number, and they have been made available. Tags relate to release cycles, and then you talk about alphas, betas, or RCs, or release candidates, and stable versions. Then you have releases. Well, if I do a 1.0 release, then I will move that in my release folder. Again, that is taking a snapshot of your trunk at a certain point in time, move it in releases, and then I start working, for example, on my 2.0 version in my trunk. And any bug fixing and maintenance is being done in that release folder. In Joomla, you find the same structure. If you go to trunk, this is where the latest work is going in. The tags are all the releases that Joomla has done. And in releases, you will find 1.5, 1.6, and probably in the future also 1.7. And then in tags, you find 151, 152, 153, 154, all of those. And then you have branches. That's a little bit specific. A branch is something that is created by a developer to work on an idea during some time. And then at a certain point, what has happened here will be moved, and we call that merged, into the trunk. Joomla has a whole bunch of branches. If you go to Joomla code and you check out the Joomla the Joomla SVN, you will see in the branches folder, you will see probably 50 branches. Joomla allows people to work on a branch, and then the idea is that that code gets incorporated. Unfortunately, in practice, it doesn't seem to really work for Joomla. We do the same thing. One difference, our branches don't live longer than a few weeks. If a developer proposes, a contributor in the Joomla community, in the Nooku community proposes to work on something, he works in a branch. People check out his branch, see what he's doing. At a certain point, that branch goes into the trunk. That's the idea. The work here done goes in there, and it later on becomes released. A branch doesn't live longer than a few weeks. If a branch lives longer than a few weeks, then there's something wrong with the branch. Either the developer has stopped working on it, or whatever is in there doesn't really work, and we need to relook at it. Then we remove the branch and we discuss it again. Joomla project has 50 of these branches, and Joomla project often says, hey guys, there's a lot of work going on. There are 50 branches. Until you start looking at actually the dates of the last changes made in the branches, there are branches going back 2-3 years. We consider that a little bit of a bad development workflow there. You're basically asking people to do work, changes are happening, innovation is happening, and then you don't do anything with that. You can do that once with a developer, and the second time he's going, you're crazy, right? I just spent 3 weeks working on something and then you do nothing with it. I'll take my time somewhere else. So we do it a little bit different. This is how an SVN works. Again, if you hire a developer, for the people that are interested in that, I always ask him if he works on a project for you to do that on a source versioning system that you have access to. Never hire a developer and basically give him a specification and let him do his thing. You don't know what he's doing. You don't know where he's doing it. And when he doesn't deliver, you don't have any clue where he's at. Nor can you intervene early, because he could be telling you something on the phone. He could go like, hey, like I worked today quite hard. Major progress happening. And he couldn't have written a single line of code. Now, developers that use Nooku can do that, because it only takes them 3 lines to actually make something work. But developers that don't use Nooku have a little bit more problems with that. But it's always good to get access to a source versioning system and then get something like a stream that simply shows you progress. That simply shows you commits. We work in Timble in the company. All our developers are distributed. Besides Tom and me, who sit face to face every day in our office, which is quite fun.
Yeah, you like it?
We do. But on a daily basis, I get emails from the commits our developers are making. I can see them working while I'm not sitting beside them. I see what they're doing. I can intervene with that. If they're doing something that isn't right, I can talk to them. If they're having a question, I can see that. I can follow progress. Important. Right? If you have it on an SVN and you have done a project using Nooku or any other PHP solution or any other technology solution, and you're not happy with the developer is doing, you can get another developer to look at it and get his opinion. Right? Or you can tell the developer, hey, sorry, we're going to end it here. Or we're not seeing a lot of progress happen. Let's get it here. We will cut our losses. Your code is on SVN. You can easily get that to another developer. Okay? This is also why Assembler is a super resource. You can set up private spaces there where the developer can work and you can interact with him. Or you can even use Assembler to do non-code projects that don't have that SVN. You don't necessarily need this part. You can use the wiki and the stream and the milestones and the tickets to manage something what also Basecamp does. Basecamp also has tickets and collaboration features. You can do this too. It doesn't necessarily need to be about code. It does that very well, but you can do something else. We, for example, use Assembler for everything in the company. We move everything we do into Assembler. We have one rule in the company. Everything is a ticket. If it's not a ticket, and you work, you cannot attach your hours to the ticket, that's fine, but you don't get paid. It's that easy. Like, we have a space, we ask our developers and our consultants to write a blog post a month. At least we try. That's a ticket. Write a blog post. Choose a topic, put it into the ticket, and then we see if you made progress, attach your hours to that. right? Everything is a ticket. Okay, what do you have here is a wiki. As people will say, documentation in Nooku isn't there yet, and that's completely true. There's still a lot of work in documenting the framework and in documenting how to develop extensions. How do we do that? We actually try to do that step by step. People are asking questions on our mailing list, and other people come up with answers, and then we ask those people to move that information to the wiki so that it becomes recorded in a way, and we can always go back to it. So documentation is a step-by-step process. Again, Nooku is not a product, right? A product comes with a manual, right? You buy it, you get the manual, start. That's a service offered around the product. This is a project that is constantly evolving. It needs documentation. You need to get people started. Again, that is more of a step-by-step process than saying, hey, I'm not interested in using Nooku if it's not documented. It doesn't work like that. If everybody says that, then there is no Nooku, right? We get that sometimes. We got, I got a little bit strict on the mailing list a little while ago because there was a guy coming in from the Joomla community, a Joomla developer, works for a big firm in the Joomla sphere. And he said, I might be considering using Nooku when it's stable and documented. And I said, well, then you came to the wrong place, right? If everybody says that, then there won't be a Nooku framework and a Nooku project. Because then everybody's going to wait and sit at the sidelines until we finished it. Then there is no reason for us to do it publicly. Then we could just keep it in the company and don't bother anyway. If you're not willing to engage and work on helping to write documentation, helping to write code, then it's never going to happen. And this is the portal. You see that you can log in. You don't need to log in. You don't need this. You can just browse these spaces. There are 4, actually there are 5 since this morning, because there is also now a Nooku server space, which I just published as I promised yesterday. Can we tweet that, please?
What, sorry?
That we have the server space public? Yeah.
You just did it?
No, it's public. Yeah, see?
Fast.
I know.
I can see it here.
Yeah, see? That's public. Cool. I said I was doing that today. No, I did that today.
While he was talking.
No? Cool. Yeah. So 5 spaces. Framework, this is where all the framework is. Examples, this is where Tom Harbor is. I'll show the demo later. Harbor is, as I told yesterday, a component to manage ships and ports. If you are an owner of a harbor, who owns a harbor? I'm trying to get there, it's quite expensive. But then again, if you ever planning to own a harbor, you could use this for your ships and your boats and your ports, but then again, probably you don't. Still, it's a very good example component of the framework.
Do rubber boats count?
No, but we could do rubber ducks maybe. Anyway, Christian, our German friend, he makes it his personal honor in a way. It's his personal thing he works on to make this a super component. And it's not only the code, but it's also the content. He collects, and I'll show it to you, he collects famous ships of the world, and with pictures and links to Wikipedia and descriptions, and he makes them into image galleries, and there are media RSS feeds that he's been adding, and he's adding metadata for them. It's like, it's a little bit of a Wikipedia thingy for boats and ports. The guy is a little bit crazy, but so are Germans in general, so with all due respect. Nooku Components. Nooku Components is a space where we are trying to create reusable extensions with the community. And as I told yesterday, there are 2 of those. We're doing a terms component, which allows you to do tagging on anything. So this part here is a component. In Joomla, that's not possible. We cannot put a component in a component. In Nooku, we can. So this thing is reusable. It's used here in Harbor, but we're using it everywhere. It's one component that is being used. Another one, we actually have more. We also have com extensions, which actually has been moved to the incubator. This is what Steen is also working on. This is an update component. The whole idea is that I can install an extension in Nooku server and then I can automatically update that. Or I can update my whole Nooku server installation. And we want to provide all the groundwork to make that happen. Updates and installations. And we also have a versioning component, which I haven't shown here, but I showed yesterday. Where you can do versions of content. We have a Nooku tool space, not much there, besides a few scripts. And the other thing that is there, but Marco isn't here yet. Where's Marco?
He's on his way.
He's on his way. Marco, which is coming, is also working in this space on unit testing. What are unit tests? Oh, so many technical terms. Shit, wrong place today. What are unit tests? Unit tests is a way for us to test if our code continues to do what it needs to do. So we write code, and then we write a test to test that code. If we change the code, we run the test to see if the code still works as intended. Unit tests. It's important. It allows you to make sure that if you make smaller changes to your framework because you're fixing bugs, that you don't what we call introduce regression. Regression means by fixing something, I'm adding another problem. So then again, if you hire a developer to work on a client project, then you might ask him to write unit tests. Right? Or you could simply ask him, hey dude, how are you going to make sure that you're going to prevent regression from happening? And if he then goes like, regression, where's my dictionary? Regression, not sure. Maybe I don't know. The answer should be unit tests. Right? It's going to cost you a little bit more because he needs to write those too. But then again, if you then get another developer and you remove the project somewhere, the unit tests are going to help you to maintain code quality. One mailing list, lists.nooku.org, which redirects to Google. The mailing list is publicly readable. If you sign up for it, there's a little form on our website that you need to fill in and you get access. As already been said, mailing lists are highly technical. We welcome any and every question from anybody. But by default, the mailing list and the discussions on there are quite technical. So that's it. 2011, well, 2011 is today, not tomorrow. What did we do today? Well, today we made Nooku server public. And what are we working on for the future? We are working on a bunch of ideas and concepts that we want to have the community build as reusable solutions. For example, build a reusable e-commerce component that you can plug in and then it becomes a virtual mart or it becomes a subscription system. Just build that base part. Versioning, we're already working on. Yeah. Okay, great. Webhooks. What is a webhook? Developers among us. You guys need to read up more. You're missing all the fun.
That's why we're here.
Google webhook. You will find a website which is called webhook.org or webhook.something, I'm not sure. And there's a video that explains it. We could do that during the break. We're going to do a quick break in a bit. Webhooks. What do webhooks do? They allow websites to talk to each other in a very, very simple way, which is quite fun because I can make a website, send a message to another site, and then do something with that. A webhook. Import-export. We want to make it easy for you to get data in and data out of a website. Basically, the problem with Joomla today is if you set up a Joomla site as a silo, it's like this is the site, and everything that sits in here, I can put in manually. I cannot get it out really easily. Importing, exporting automatically. It's just this is the silo. If I want to move content from this site to another, that's not possible. Import, export. We want to make that easy. I'll go out of there. The other stuff that we're doing, I already showed you a little bit, HTML5, moving to the desktop, logging, showed yesterday, playing with RDF, another one of those terms, resource description format, auto-updating, Web 2.0, implementations, things like improved usability, and a reusable commenting system, attachments, media management, those are all reusable components, reusable parts that we want